Good evening. My name is Nicholas Brown, and I am the Chief Operating Officer for Communication and Outreach at the Prince George's County Memorial Library System in Maryland. On behalf of the library and our partners, the Prince George's County Office of Human Rights and the University of Maryland Latin American Studies Centers, thanks for choosing us for your evening tonight. We are in for a very special conversation featuring Peabody Award-winning journalist and author Maria Hinojosa, who will discuss her acclaimed book, Once I Was You, with Ofelia Montelongo, who's a writer in residence with the Faulkner Foundation. We'll have the opportunity to learn about Maria's journey and also her perspectives on the pressing issue of immigration in our country. As a reporter who was the first Latina in many newsrooms, Maria dreamt of a space where she could create independent, multimedia journalism that explores and gives a crucial voice to the diverse American experience. To that end, in 2010, she created Futuro Media, an independent nonprofit organization based in Harlem with the mission to create multimedia content for and about the new American mainstream in the service of empowering people to navigate the complexities of an increasingly diverse and connected world. She is the anchor and executive producer of the Peabody Award-winning show Latino USA, distributed by PRX, as well as co-host of In the Thick, Futuro Media's award-winning political podcast. Her nearly 30-year career as an award-winning journalist includes reporting for PBS, CBS, WNBC, CNN, NPR, and anchoring the Emmy Award-winning talk show from WGBH, Maria Hinojosa, One-on-One. Beyond all that, she is the author of 2 books and has won dozens of awards, including 4 Emmys, the John Chancellor Award, the Studs Terkel Community Media Award, 2 Robert F. Kennedy Awards, and welcome to Hilda, our ASL interpreter. And Maria has also received the Edward R. Murrow Award from the Overseas Press Club and the Ruben Salazar Lifetime Achievement Award from the NAHJ. Ofelia Montelongo is a bilingual writer from Mexico who received a BA in Accounting and Finance, an MBA, and a BA in English and Creative Writing. She has an MA in Spanish and Latin American Literature from the University of Maryland, and her work has been published in Latino Book Review, Los Acentos Review, Rio Grande Review, and elsewhere. She was the 2019 Writers Center Undiscovered Voices Fellow, and she currently teaches at the University of Maryland and has been a Faulkner writer in residence in Washington, D.C. This year, she was named one of the Pan America Emerging Voices Fellows. Before we welcome on Maria and Ofelia, we just want to let you all know that we have a very special treat tonight, and that is that free copies of Maria's book are going to be provided to attendees of tonight's program while supplies last. This is thanks to the generosity of Maria and her organization and also the library system. And we are really grateful for the opportunity to be able to share her work with you directly without a cost. Of course, the book is also available through the library at pgcmls.info and for purchase through loyalty bookstores. Without further ado, I'm going to welcome up Ofelia and Maria. Thanks so much.
Hola, hola. Hello, hello.
¿Qué pasó, paisana? ¿Cómo estamos?
Muy bien, paisana Maria. It's just an honor to be here with you here tonight. And thank you so much for the Prince George County Memorial Library System, to Nick Brown, and of course to you, Maria. Welcome y muchas gracias por estar aquí. Thank you so much. And
hey, hello, Maryland. Hello, Prince George's County. What's up? Saludos from my bedroom studio in Harlem, New York City. It doesn't get more intimate. You get to see my plants. You get to see my husband's paintings. You get to see an award. This is
nice. Yeah.
Beautiful award that I got from the California Legislative Caucus. And last night we did an event for Once I Was You, and I named this beautiful bear also, but I gave him the name of Golondrina.
Golondrina, excellent. That's amazing.
Because if you read the book, you'll know the importance of the bird, the swallow, Golondrina. But it's great to be here with you tonight.
Thank you. I have nothing exciting besides books over here, so to show, and a lot of books everywhere. But before we start diving into the book, and I have a bunch of questions. I have pages and pages of questions and comments that I love your book. I just want to congratulate you for being in the Heights. I screamed when I saw you. I read your book, and I know you wanted to be an actress, and it was like so hard to see your dreams crushed. So when I saw you in the Heights, I was like, oh my God, Maria! So finally, your dream came true. So why don't you start telling us, how did that happen?
Thank you for that question. Oh my God. Thank you for that question. And I hope that everybody, I know it's hard because we're like, resuming our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I never thought I would go back to a movie theater, but my entire family went to see In the Heights in the movie theater. We had popcorn, tomamos agua, because that's the thing you drink these days. And we just had the most amazing time watching the film in a movie theater. So if you haven't done that, I would say do that and be safe, of course. And then to answer your question, I try to look for messages in all of these things that happen to me. And so what I've been telling people, my students, my staff, my friends, is that what happened for me in the Heights, in the Heights, is a reason why you should never give up on any dream. One of the first questions I ask my students, because I'm Mexican, I'm an immigrant, so I have 16 jobs. So aparte de todo, I'm also a professor at Barnard College, my alma mater. And I start by asking my students, what's your craziest, wildest dream? My craziest, wildest dream was to be in a Hollywood. I actually wanted to produce, not direct so much, but produce a Hollywood film. I thought that was what was going to start my experience in Hollywood. In fact, I get to be in what I consider a groundbreaking film. It's not perfect, and I think that's part of what the conversation around In the Heights is about, which is, we have so few Latinos and Latinas, who are basically commanding the film world. And we want more, because not one film can do everything for everyone and represent everything and everyone. I do want to say the conversations around what's happening within the Heights, and if you're like, what is she talking about? Go see the film and then have a conversation with your family about how you felt about the film. And here's what I'll say about In the Heights. It brought me a tremendous amount of joy. The film, the experience, everything about it brought me a tremendous amount of joy, both being in the film as well as watching the film. And and also I want to recognize the Afro-Latinos who are everywhere in the film, whether it's, Dasha Polanco or Leslie Grace or Anthony Ramos or Daphne Rubin Vega. There are Afro-Latinos represented. And I think the question of having darker skinned Afro-Latinos is legitimate, and we have to talk about it, because that's what internalized racism looks like. So we have to talk about it. But again, thank you for asking. My character is Juana the Organizer. I'm part of a new storyline in the film, which I think is really important for this community in Prince George's County. There is an undocumented storyline now in the Heights, and so it touches a lot of us quite deeply. Thank you for that question, Ofelia. Muchas gracias.
Oh, no, thank you. And I love the chanting when you were there, and they were like, tell our stories, tell our stories. And honestly, I cried a lot during that movie. I cried a lot with your book in so many ways. And we can go and talk about your book. And I just want to congratulate you again, because I saw myself reflected in so many ways. Again, as I was telling you, I have so many questions that I was like, okay, I have to choose and pick the ones I want to ask, because this could be a conversation. And again, as paisanas, as coming from Mexico and living in the United States, there's just so much to unpack, and there's so much to see. And how I see it is a story, of course, it's a memoir about you, but also about the history of the immigration of the United States. And for me, that was like the spinach in the book, as you call it, like espinacas. It was just amazing to see, because I have a list of wow moments. I'm not going to share it yet, but I have a list of wow moments. It's like, oh my goodness, like how did I know about this? I'm living in this country and I don't know about this. So your book is super, super important, and not only weaves into those things, it's also about mental health, imposter syndrome. And imposter syndrome, we see it in the heights as well, no? And we see it in your book. And it's about identity, visibility, and journalism, of course, about telling the stories. And the first question I want to ask you is that you have an amazing career, like more than 30 years, and of being a journalist and a writer and an amazing icon in the community. And when was it that you decide, okay, it's time to write this book? You know, let's write this book. Let's write Once I Was You.
All right, so la verdad, because I deal only con la verdad, is that I did not plan on writing this book.
Mm-hmm.
I did not necessarily even want to write another book. I think it's really important to say this because I wrote 2 books at the start of my career, and they were both loved, but they were not commercially successful. And so I internalized that as a failure. And I was like, I'm not going to write any more books. It's too painful. It's too difficult. There's an expectation in the publishing industry of sales. And I was like, I won't write another book again. As you know, Paisana, in Mexico, we have one of my favorite sayings of all times: no hay mal que por bien no venga. There is no bad from which good cannot come. And so the horror of the election of Donald Trump, and we're not recuperated from this horror at all, at all, not even close. But one of the things that happened was that it kind of pushed a lot of people into different experiences. And the chair of my board of directors for Futuro Media, which is a nonprofit. So we have a board of directors. Deepa Donde is a friend of mine, has known me for decades. And she was the one who said, you need to write the book, Illegal is Not a Noun. Because I had a moment on MSNBC that went viral on Fusion about illegal is not a noun. Y te lo juro, I was like, bueno, I can write a small book. In fact, I'm going to reach over. I'm going to get a small book from my bookshelf here. This is the kind of small book that I wanted to write. Like, this is a little book. You see it? It's a little book. I can hold it in one hand. It's the kind of, this actually is Thich Nhat Hanh. Thich Nhat Hanh is a master Buddhist meditation teacher. And I love him, and I read him. Sandra Cisneros turned me on to him, and my friend Cecilia. So I wanted to write a little book. I was like, I'll write a little book. Illegal is not a noun. Like, well, you can pick it up at the you know, when we would travel on airplanes all the time? You pick it up at the airport. Bueno, para hacértelo corto, what ended up happening is that, you know, in the process of selling the book, you know, and this idea, it was like, no, Maria, we don't want a small book from you. We want a big book from you. Y ahí me entró mucho miedo, te lo juro. I also got very scared. And my editor, a Mexican-Irish writer, editor from Chicago, New York, Michelle Herrera Mulligan, she was the one who said, we want a big book from you, and you need to write the history. De nuevo me entró un pánico. I was like, oh my God, I'm so scared. Oh my God, I can't do this. And I'm super proud of the fact that the book, claro, it's very intimate. Es muy íntimo. O sea, you know, I open myself up because that's the only way to write a memoir. But it's also got, I love it. It's the spinach. It's the stuff that you're going to read and you're going to be like, wow, de verdad? And one thing that I'm going to leave you with, you know, in the writing of this book, I found I have mujeres inmigrantes, cualquier mujer inmigrante, any immigrant woman or refugee woman has a relationship to Asian, Chinese women who were the first people excluded from coming to this country. That is our legacy. not people who were here and, excluded from participating, like whether or not you were indigenous or if you were brought in chains or if you were Mexican and, lived in the north of the country. No. People who were told you can't come, we don't want you. It was Asian, Chinese women in the Page Act in 1870, bueno, me tomé el tequila, entonces, yeah, so the dates.
I wanted my tequila too.
I think it was 1875. Don't quote me just because of the tequila. But that was the first law to say, you don't come here. It was for women. And all they wanted was to be like my mom, to be with her husband, the father of her children, and to be a family.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I wanted to write the history, so that we see ourselves deeply in the history of this country.
Mm-hmm. And wow, and there's just a lot to unpack, and a lot of history that we have been told by some people, like very whitewashed, like honestly. And when you people call, and this is the little book, right? The small book you ended up writing, right? And I have it in Espanol, of course, as well. And I love translations, and I'll ask you about it in a minute. But and a lot of people call your book timely, right? And when I was reading your book, and I can call it, oh yeah, it's very timely, right? But when I was reading your book, like the history of migration for decades, right, is been timely for a long, long time, right? And that's another thing that I learned is like, somehow we have this narrative somehow, like we do have, like in the story of this country, the narratives like good immigrant versus bad immigrant, etc. And then and I didn't know Bill Clinton militarized the border. I didn't. So, and I learned that it's all about politics, right? Like sometimes we want to see like Democrats versus Republicans, the good or the bad ones or whatever. But it's so complex. It's way more like that, And I learn a lot from it, because I'm not from this country, and I learn about politics in the news. I learn from you, from journalists, right? That's how we learn, because you are writing history, and that's one of the things that that I learn a lot, and also makes me think about it, because when Trump was president, everyone was losing hope, and then Biden won, and we're like, oh yeah, we can be happy, but then we have the vice president going to Guatemala and then telling people, don't come, right? What was your reaction when that happened?
So I realized I didn't finish the thought of no hay mal que por bien no venga. The mal, the bad was that Donald Trump was elected, and that inspired me to have the sense of responsibility that I had to write this book.
Mm-hmm.
I really felt I had a duty to write this book, to respond to the Trump era, to not let the Trump era define this moment. If you follow me on Instagram and on Twitter,
Mm-hmm.
you saw my reaction. That particular day when Vice President Kamala Harris was in Guatemala, I was very busy at home doing my multiple jobs.
Of course.
It's as if we were like, before we would be busy and we'd be going to different, now it's like we're busy and we're right here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the day, and I had a very long day, like, tonight I was, and at the end of the day, I finally was able to check in, and I was like, she said, what? And my chest sunk. I felt sick. I felt nauseous. I felt horrified and disgusted, because you cannot have any sense of awareness of the moment in history that we are living in, and the essential role that the conversation around immigration, immigrants, and refugees is playing in our country, that is the reason why Donald Trump got elected.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot, it shows to me, sadly, that the vice president's team and that the president's team do not have that awareness
Mm-hmm.
of understanding immigration as a central issue, not a problem. to be like, covered up, but like, so it is an issue. And in my view, it's an opportunity for the Democrats to solidify their future for the next several decades. But instead, they choose to fall into the fear. And the fear being of the bad immigrant. Don't come. You're Central American. You're refugees. You're dirty. You're you're flawed. You're problematic human beings because you're refugees. Don't come. Oh my God, why did she say those words? She's going to be known forever as the vice president who said, don't come.
You'll be in your second book, about continuing the history.
What makes me very sad is that the lack of engagement on the part, like my colleague, Julio Ricardo Varela, at Futuro Media, he just tweeted out, I didn't know he was going to do this, but I was checking my Twitter feed, again, another long day. And he just said, this is a request to the president and to the vice president to sit down with Maria Hinojosa. I mean, look, I'm okay. I'm gonna be straight up. Look, I'm barefoot. Okay, like I'm pretty humble. Like I'm not trying to be like, oh my God, I got an interview with the president. That's not what this is about. But the fact that the White House has not responded to our requests for an interview with the president or the vice president is disrespectful. So, but on the other hand, I'm here for it. My responsibility as a citizen of this country is to fight for these things as a journalist, as a woman, as an immigrant, as a Mexican, as a short person, as, una poderosa. I'm just going to keep on doing my thing. If they never give me an interview, bueno, it will be written down someplace in the history books that they failed to give an interview to the most prominent English language Latino program in the United States, when Latinos and Latinas are the second largest voting bloc in the United States at this moment. Shame on them. So what can you do? You should tell them. Speak to her if you want. You don't have to do anything. Actually, you don't have to do anything. But if it's so, let them know.
Of course. And I look forward. I hope someday they'd say yes. And it will be great to see you there and kind of talk about them, about this. And I can go because I'm close to DC. So I can go to the White House and I can just put that in there like, hello, Mr. Biden, go and read this book, por favor. I can definitely do that. And or the version in Spanish that they probably won't read the version in Spanish, but just for them to know that it's available. And everyone is, they know. And whoever reads this book is going to notice that. And that's another amazing things that happened, like with the book when I was reading Maria. Like it kind of ground me to my reality, because I've been living here for about 13 years. I lived 10 years in Arizona, and I didn't know what was happening. I was just leaving. I was there with SB 1070 was happening.
Wow, you lived like the most intense but fascinating times. What you witnessed in Arizona, from SB 1070 to Arizona turning blue.
And I'm here in Maryland now, but the SB 1070, that's the thing, that it's weird when it's happening because you're just living your life, but all of this in the background are happening. And and for example, like some friends of mine that they were bartenders, etc. And they're like, they told me I have to go north because, I can't stay here because of the new law, etc. So I have to move north. And I was like, whoa, oh my God, okay. And a friend of mine went to Tent City with George Pius when George Pius used to be a sheriff. this friend of mine, you're supposed to go to Tent City, like go during the day and come back in the night. And for a week, we couldn't find him. They sent him to the jail because he didn't bring his visa with him. So ICE was expecting to deport him or something because he didn't bring his visa to his DUI to the UI because he had a DUI. So all of these were happening, and with your book, I understood what was happening. Like it wasn't only in Arizona. It started with the Prop, well, started before, but the Prop 187 in California, and all of the history behind it. And I was like, wow, how can I not know about these? And also the border because I'm from Sonora. I'm from the north of Mexico. So I used to go back and forth in the border. And it's really sad to do the cotidianidad, like to be like, then nowadays, like, because I used to cross in shuttles by foot, the bus, and I remember saying like, let's see if someone is stopped today. I used to look for drugs under my seat because one lady was stopped one day. So when you cross, you just had to make sure no one put anything in there. And that was normal. And when I moved to Maryland and I was just like telling these stories to my friends, it's like, yeah, it's not as normal as you think, like living in the border states over there. But that's another thing that I resonate a lot with your book, that you were talking about that fear when you were crossing the border of, depending in the mood of the agent, they could just like, no, I don't like you today. Just go away. I'm going to take off your green card. And another thing that happened, and I was thinking all of this when I was reading your book, that my mom used to live in the border. So I used to visit like from Phoenix to the border a lot. And I was going to visit her in a shuttle, and then Border Patrol stopped us and to ask papers to all of us, right? Like, okay, get out. And just to ask papers. Some of them start running, some of them were handcuffed, etc. And I was like, I should not normalize this. This is not normal, but it's happening here in the border, right? So, and I was just telling you all of this, kind of like, just to ask you this question, it's like, how do you see the border in the future? Or most like, what would it be the ideal situation at the border?
Well, so I want to do something that I think is really important.
Mm-hmm.
I want us to all realize that what happens at the border really is defined by us. So recently I had an extraordinary opportunity. I interviewed Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the congresswoman. I went up to her office here in the Bronx. It was my first in-person interview since the pandemic. And I shared with her this thing that happened. Somebody asked me a question about the future.
Mm-hmm.
A question similar to yours. What about the future and the border? And I said, look, I have an image that came to my mind, which is that when Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is elected as president of the United States,
Mm-hmm.
she will be the only one who has the capacity to go stand on that wall and to say, we will tear down this wall. And she said, I can see that, but it's going to happen because we do it together.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's basically my response to you, is that it's not so much how I see the border, it's what we all determine. And so what does that mean? I mean, I'm desperately worried. The border, when I was a little kid, I write about this, right? I write about, you picked up on it, exactamente, Ofelia. And because of your own experience, always crossing the border, there was this just kind of like this tension, like this, like, oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
We normalized it. We lived with it. We didn't talk about it, but it was there. And so the thought of what the border looks like now,
Mm-hmm.
it has been turned into a war zone by the United States under the Trump administration. It didn't start under Trump. It was the building up with Bill Clinton, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
there is no need for there to be razor wire, to be caged in the way it is now. When the last trip that I took, which was in January of 2020, before the shutdown, and going to El Paso and Juarez, and you're crossing over a bridge over the Rio Grande. It's a bridge.
Mhm.
And now all of a sudden you've got gates all over you. And so I guess what I'm saying is that we are the ones who have to continue to tear down that wall in every possible way. All of us, however it is, whether it's calling your members of Congress, whether it's going down there and witnessing, whether it's talking about it, it's the same way in which the conversation around Black Lives Matter, and understanding how we all have responsibility in the conversation around Black Lives Mattering. These are our neighbors, our friends, our families, because Latinos and Latinas are also Black. So we have to defend these lives, defend immigrant lives. And we have to engage in the conversation about the border and take it back.
Mhm.
Literally take it back. When you ask me what does it look like, I'm like, I'm not saying that there should be open borders and uncontrolled. No, pero tampoco. Not everybody wants to come to this country, but there are some people who sometimes want to come to work in this country. And also, there's another thing: there are refugees, and they are very different things, and we have to understand that.
Mhm. Yeah, and by law, they can come here. So that's the thing. And and thank you for that answer, Maria. And I am waiting to vote for Alexandria. And sometimes when I go to DC, I hope to run into her, but it hasn't happened yet. Just to like, Alexandria, you don't know me, but I'm gonna vote for you. And again, this is about all of us, about all of us doing something about it. It's not gonna be just one person. It has to be all of us doing it. So thank you for that, and it just gives hope, hope to continue, and it's just it's just amazing. Another thing that I liked about your book, I liked so many things, of course, but the other one is about when you were talking about your name. Well, I'm Mexicana, I have two last names, and a lot of people in Latin America have two last names, etc. And so I clapped so many times in your book, like, vamos, Maria, go for it, because you were like raising your hand, you were like in the table, you were like making your voice heard. But the time I clapped the hardest, when one of those is when you decided that your name was going to be in Espanol. When you were in NPR, so the first opportunity you said it in English, and the second time you said it in Espanol. So you made a conscious decision. No, I'm going to pronounce my name in Espanol. So Maria Hinojosa. And honestly, that was just so lovely, because I don't know about anyone who's listening and if they are from Latin America, but our name is so important. We have two last names. And I hope, I really have hope, like, to have read this book in my 20s for so many reasons, but I'm happy I'm reading it in my 30s, of course. But my name is Ofelia, right? But a lot of people like the F is just weird, so I say Ofelia, right? And it's fine. And I have let it go for so many years. And sometimes the erasure of the second name happens, the second name, and the second last name, because it's Valencia, and they call me Ofelia Valencia instead of Montelongo Valencia. The whole thing, no? So I really appreciated everything, and I appreciate that you share your struggle with your long Spanish name, and I love that. And have you what has been your experience over the years of owning your name? For example, do you ever get tired of correcting people, or have you stopped correcting people about saying your name correctly? Because I want to know if that keeps happening.
I love the question. By the way, me dio mucha hambre because I've been running all day. So I'm having a little bit of my dinner. Sorry,
Yeah,
but
of
we're
course.
like family. You're in my home.
Dale,
Sorry. Well, I do drink a little. I do drink one shot of tequila every night, but I don't do a shot. I sip it.
Oh, okay.
And as you can see, I haven't finished it because I realized, I was like, wait a second. I have an empty stomach. Not good, because I don't drink. I drink tequila because it's very good in combating cholesterol.
Yeah, I'm gonna drink mine after this. So
you know that. So perdón por la comida.
No, don't worry.
Look, people still get my name wrong, and it. You know what actually, when somebody pronounces my name wrong, I'm always thinking, people are looking at you and thinking, wow, you didn't take the time to learn how to pronounce her name. And so I feel ashamed for them. It doesn't really, at this point in my life, but because, óyeme, soy una mayorcita, I'm the elder here. But, for example, my daughter, I have now began to hear her, and she's correcting people. My daughter has a very intense name. So her full name is, prepárate, Ofelia. Her full name, and I don't know, por favor, Hilda, this is going to be too much. It's going to be so much.
We can write it in the chat.
You can just say super long name. Maria Jurema Guadalupe de los Indios Pérez Hinojosa.
Híjola,
But her shortened name is Jurema. That's the way, it's a Brazilian name. There's a whole story around her name. She was Americanizing her name up until this year. She doesn't let that happen anymore. Now she corrects people. She's like, no, it's not this, it's this. And I feel like I'm so proud because that's part of the lesson. It's not that we have to shame somebody into you're saying it wrong.
Is that Walter? Well, bring
Walter. Hold on. Walter.
We've seen him before, so I want to know.
Dámelo. Oh my God, Walter. This is Walter.
Adorable.
I don't know what happened. He's recently become entertained by looking at dogs on the street. He didn't used to do that. And so now all of a sudden he sees a dog on the street and he's like, I'm a bully. Don't be walking on my street when I'm not there. Anyway, so here's what I think. I think the conversation around our names and our identities is really important. And I always like to ask people, what's the right way? What's the, and I think we should see it as a form of respect entre nosotros, and especially with people that speak a different language, whether it's Mandarin or it's Greek or it's French or it's, anything. We should be, sensitive to how do you like to pronounce it? How is it pronounced? And do your best. Because this is what the future looks like. It's not going to get any easier. Like the fact that I name my kids these names, I'm not the only one who's doing that.
And it's honestly, it's all again with the same conversation of owning ourselves, Maria. Owning, don't leave me, and owning our voice, right? Or owning who we are, and it all goes around the same topic, right? And I wanted to ask you about the wows in the stories. I have so many wows when I was like, whoa, this really happened. And I'm gonna read them really quick because I want you to share with you. First, what Ronald Reagan said: Hispanics are already Republicans; they just don't know it yet. Or when you follow people, and I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but it's an invitation that this book is really good. Or when you follow people in Canada and you were really devastated for what happened later. I'm not gonna tell what happens later, so you can go and read the book. When people were giving themselves AIDS in Cuba, I was shocked. I was just shocked. Or being accused of having a Latino agenda. Or just wiping your stories that you heard and the trauma, you just leaving it somewhere like they were not part of you. That was some of the wow's moments. And also the maggots and the gusanos in the oatmeal. It was I know the conditions in the concentration camps, because that's how you call them as well. They exist, but that it really frustrated me a lot. And the last wow, and because I reduced a lot of my wows, there's a lot of wows in there, is what happened in DACA, that the dozens of students were in the Denver's election quarters and they didn't leave. That surprised me because I didn't know. I interviewed a lot of DACA students for an article, and I didn't know that story. And I felt mad at myself how I didn't know about this and how Obama was portrayed like they took all the credit, right? So there's some of the wows in your book, and I just wanted to know, what were your wows? What surprised you the most about your own book when you're writing it, or when you were talking about it later on?
Well, one of the things that was a wow for me, but it was a long wow, was feeling a very beautiful connection with my father, who passed away in 2015. So I really felt like mi papa was coming to me at different times as I was writing this, and that I was making peace with what I put him through as the youngest kid. I was a rebel. So that was a very intimate wow. I think there was the big wow, like, for example, what I talked about is, realizing how connected we are to Asian women. And so when people talk about anti-Asian hate, it's like, we have to understand how this has touched us all and make that very human connection. Writing the introduction was a moment that I wasn't, because I had finished the book. I was like, whew, oh my God, I'm done. Oh my God, I'm done. Oh God, I'm done. And then, my editor said, well, you have to write the introduction. I was like, are you kidding? And that's when the words of Sandra Cisneros really, really worked for me, right? Walter, that's when the words of Sandra Cisneros, who said, don't write just about what you remember. Write about what you wish you could forget. And I thought about this moment in the airport when I encountered children who had been taken from their family members and seeing them being trafficked, because they are being trafficked, and how this is a moment that I wish I could forget. And then there was another thing that happened, which we had finished the book, and then the El Paso massacre happened. And I kind of it was just like, oh my God, like the horror, everything that the book is trying to say, like we got to be careful, because it's going to get worse. And then on top of everything that we've lived through, the horror of a massacre of Mexicans and Mexican immigrants and Latinos and brown people who were shopping. So, it was like, oh my God, go in, and now you have to write something that is not going to end on a completely depressing note. There's got to be some hope. And I think the other, I guess, wow, or, a kind of personal thing was, I really was not expecting to write so much about being a survivor of rape. I think that it was the moment, it was the nomination of Justice, I can't call him, I just have a hard time calling him Supreme Court Justice, because I have such a tremendous amount of disrespect for him. So Kavanaugh and everything that happened around his nomination, and that ended up forcing me to have to write about something that I really hadn't planned on really even kind of processing publicly. But I love your wows. Was it W-O-W or was it W-A-O? When you would go wow?
W-O-W. But my accent probably says something differently. I don't know. Yeah.
No, I was like, is it wow or is it wow?
Oh yeah, like I think in English it's spelled like W-O-A-I-H, like wow.
No.
No, I don't know.
In English, it's W-O-W, but in Espanol, it's wow, W-O-A.
Okay.
Wow.
Like, wow, right. The wows of the story. And I have more, but I think we're going to be opening for questions. So if anyone has any questions, they can just put it in the chat. If not, I'm gonna keep asking questions, Maria, because I have a ton of questions about that. And the Wow Connected, when you were talking about, and thank you for writing about your sexual assault, because it's gonna help a lot of people. And my wow was that 13 Reasons Why, the TV show, um, it affected on that. No? So that was one part of the wows as well. That you never know what is going to inspire you or it's going to trigger you to write something, no? Which is amazing. And let me check if we have questions. But okay, share your questions, share your preguntas over here, and I'm gonna keep asking you. And I have I have some questions that they're more. I think they're gonna be a little bit more short. And I heard that you're gonna have a YA version of the book. Or is it on? I don't know what has happened with that. So
Aquí entre nosotros.
dime.
Aquí entre nosotros. Yes, it's happening. There is an upcoming young readers edition of Once I Was You. And I am so honored and excited about this. And let me tell you why. Oh, wait, there's going to be a siren. Hold on. Okay. So, you know, in the beginning of Once I Was You, there is this story about a group of children who are being trafficked, have been taken from their family members. And I don't know where these children ended up, because I mean, I'd have to do a deep investigative work that's possible. But, you know, given that they really didn't treat these children like human beings or like children, I'd have to figure out where did they end up? But there's a chance that some of them ended up in the United States, maybe reunited with their family members, and that they have learned English. And so if they were 5, 8, 12, you know, when I saw them, they are now 8, 11 and 15. And they speak English. And the thought that they might suddenly pick up a book and read it and see themselves as immigrants, as Latinos, Latinas, refugees of every race, by the way, because it's not just Central American children who have been taken from their parents. Every race, color, creed have been taken from their family members at the border. So that possibility to write a book that is going to be like for them. Oh my God, I'm very honored. I guess I'm a little scared. I'm a little scared because it's such a responsibility. But I thought originally that I would be writing the book maybe for like 15 or 16-year-olds. And Ofelia, in the writing, and in the discussing this with my editors and et cetera, it was like, no. You know what? You're going to write, I'm going to write this book for 10 and 12-year-olds.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yes. Because that like basically they're gonna be reading this book. So imagínate cómo me siento, which this like tremendous responsibility, and yet I do hope that if they get their hands on it, that it changes their lives for the better.
And is it going to be in Español as well, the YA version?
Bueno, me imagino, mija. Imagínate, I just today, just you see how these things go. Just today, checked the email, and I got the news that I am going to be recording the Spanish version of Una Vez Fui Tú. I'm going to be doing the audiobook.
Amazing.
And I know it's very exciting, pero tengo tanto miedo. No sabes. Oh my God, I'm so... And I like to talk about this. I like people to be like, well, what do you mean, Maria Hinojosa, you're scared? And I was like, yeah, I'm scared. I'm like, geez, I mean, I speak Spanish with my husband who's here. I speak Spanish with my kids, but it's not I speak more English than I speak Spanish. And now all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, tienes que entrar en el estudio and you have to read this book and people are going to hear you reading Spanish. So I'm already in my mind. I'm like, okay, the month of August, you're going to go to the studio every morning from 9 to 11 and you're going to be recording. Maybe actually from 8 to 10, and you're just going to go in and you're going to record. Because I have to prepare myself because it's going to be hours. So imagine that just happened in terms of the Spanish language book that already exists. So will there be a Spanish language young readers version? Let me send a message to my agent.
Great. I'm writing a YA novel as well, so that's why I asked. It's like so important, like to have them in both languages.
I think there will be. Yes, I do think there will be. Yes.
And I wanted to know about the Spanish translation, but we do have one question here in the chat. That is, who are some of the writers and creators you admire?
Wow. Oh my God.
A lot.
Well, I'm going to be straight up honest. Like right now, I have a lot of admiration for Kiara Alegría Hudes.
Yeah, I have her book right here.
She wrote the book, yes, My Broken Language, and she's the screenwriter for In the Heights. And so as a creator, as a writer, as an artist who, puts herself out there, I mean, I don't think she ever imagined that she'd be writing a screenplay for a major Hollywood film, and she just did. And I see the kind of vulnerability it takes to do something like that. I'm very close and very inspired by Sandra Cisneros. I'm very lucky to call her a friend and a muse. She really helped me to believe I could write this book. So I love Sandra. I'm gonna grab something from out in left field because I'm actually writing. I mean, this is nice. I'm actually doing a lot more writing now. So I'm really sad that I took 20 years between the last book that I wrote and the book that I'm writing and the writing that I'm doing now. Cause I'm like, oh man, you're a writer, so you're writing stuff like this is like, oh my God, you're a writer. Like you, Ofelia, you're a writer. I mean, I'm like, so I just wrote an introduction for Ernest Hemingway. And so, I think in the book I mentioned Ernest Hemingway actually really impacted me as a writer. And so he's kind of on my mind. I call my journalistic founding father is Frederick Douglass. And I'm deeply inspired by Harriet Tubman. I live in Harlem, so her statue is not too far from here. If you don't know who she is, Jovita Idar is amazing. She was a U.S. Mexican Latina from El Paso who was a journalist, ran a newspaper, and was a fighter. She just got inducted into the National Association of Hispanic Journalists Hall of Fame. Jovita Idar is kind of having a moment right now. And so these are people who I admire and inspire me, and so many others. I mean, my husband, the artist, behind me, who is perpetually creating and an artist. I mean, I really feel tremendous inspiration from artists and my fellow journalists too.
Kerman, I love his paintings, and as soon as I read about him, I went to go and look for his paintings as well. And I hope one day I can see them in person. That will be amazing. And we have another question in the chat. And where is the question? Okay, what's your advice to younger Latina or Latinx journalists who have benefited from your leadership in the field?
I would beg of you to not give up. Look, anything that you choose to do, let's just say that la ilusión about the American dream, I think, the mask is taken off and we realize that, there isn't really this notion of an American dream. What's going to happen is because we're going to put in super hard work. and part of the hard work for me is if you have this sense of mission or passion for the thing that you do. Maybe you have a passion for plants, like me, right? And you dedicate yourself to, having a plant store. And you gotta, the way that you're gonna have a plant store is because you love your plants so much that they're gonna be able to exist, and then you're gonna sell it. Like, you have to love it. So journalism is something that you have to love. And I think if you would have asked me when I was, maybe right out of college and still unsure, do you love journalism? Are you sure? I might have been like, well, I think so. I'm not. So I know I'm asking a lot of you, but if you love it, if you're like, oh my God, no, I really love this, then you need to stick with it. And you need to, in many ways, find your own path. And it's hard. It is competitive. On the other hand, if you're a smart, hungry Latino, Latina, or woke journalist, if you are a journalist of color and of conscience, this is a moment for you. Absolutely. And we need you desperately. So the big message is, don't give up, please. You're going to find challenges. You may not get the first job. I wish I could tell you about the people who worked in my company, Maggie Freeling, for example, who helped produce a beautiful podcast called Suave. If you haven't listened to it, please listen to it. Mm-hmm. Maggie was turned down for 3 jobs at my company. And she kept on showing up. She kept on freelancing. She kept on showing up in the office. Mm-hmm. And you know what? Maggie now got so huge, produced Suave, got, that she's left the company, is now, created her own career.
Mm-hmm. She swallowed the fear.
So don't let the moments where you get a no, or when it's hard, take you down. Keep doing this. Look at the work of my colleague Julieta Martinelli, who is formerly undocumented, immigrant from Argentina in Atlanta, Georgia. And she had no way to go to a master's in journalism, and she did it all by going out there and reporting. So find the local newspaper, start doing the reporting, train yourself. Mm-hmm. We need you. And just don't give up.
And swallow the fear. I wanted to say, Maria, thank you so much for everything. And you say something because we have to close up now, but you say something in your book that says, change, it starts with knowledge. And ladies and gentlemen, this is knowledge. So you have to read it. And I have a chingona keychain for you that I will send you sometime.
Yes, please.
Thank you so much.
I love it.
It was a pleasure, and Renee is going to close it up. Gracias.
Love you, Marilyn. Love you, Prince George's County.
Oh, Renee, you're on mute. Oh. The phrase of 2020, yeah.
Okay, right. After 15 months, I still have not mastered the technique of unmuting when we talk. So there's hope, though. We're going to keep this. So ladies, thank you so much. That was very thought-provoking, eye-opening, and it's a conversation that should not be a one and done. So thank you. So on behalf of the Prince George's County Office of Human Rights, we extend a huge thank you. We also want to particularly thank Hilda for providing the ASL interpretation tonight. And to all of you viewing, we thank you for tuning in. Pay attention. The library is providing free copies of the book to those of you tuning in tonight while supplies last. I never thought I would say that. I feel like I'm in a commercial. So please make sure that you fill out the form that you'll find a link to in the chat to get a copy mailed to you. So do that. I also want to thank the Prince George's County Memorial Library System for including us in this incredible conversation this evening, with particular thanks, as always, to Mick Brown for all of his efforts on this event and so many others. I'm going to highlight just for you a couple of things that we have coming up that you can look forward to. Next week, Tuesday, our Elephant We Don't See Diversity Dialogue series continues with our partners, PGC MLS. We're going to be discussing Pass with Care. It's a memoir by Cooper Lee Bombardier that reflects on his experiences as a trans man. And in July, our partnership series with New South Books continues as we talk to Ken Woodley about The Road to Healing, a civil rights reparations story in Prince Edward County, Virginia. So our neighbors. We are also thrilled that Kendra Allen will be joining us again, this time to talk about her new poetry collection, The Collection Plate. To learn more about this and other upcoming events, please visit our friends, the library, at pgcmls.info/events. And they have new stuff every single day. So please do that. And please visit our events webpage at tinyurl.com/PGCHRC events. So thank you again, everyone, for your time. Thank you again, ladies, for this wonderful, wonderful discussion. And thank you, everyone. Please have a safe evening. Good night.
Thank you, everyone.